Jen, where are you?
Atlanta area.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's raining and awful.
Risa! Nice to see ya.
Yes.
How are you?
Oh, I'm great. This is just wonderful.
Good. How's John?
Good. He's going to pop in a little bit and say hi.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Jackie, Stacy, Kim. Oh my gosh.
Jackie.
Look at everybody. Mo.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh my goodness, it's been 2 years.
I know it's too long. We got to fix that.
I sure hope so.
Yeah. So there's somebody who is on, just who dialed in. That's perfect. Who can the person who is on the phone just tell me who you are?
Hi Beth, it's Kim Clapp.
Perfect. Great. I'm glad you got on. Good to hear you, Kim.
You too. Thank you.
There's Carmen.
Hi Beth, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you too. We have a bunch of California people on. So Carmen, Sarah, Risa. Risa and Carmen, do you guys know each other?
No.
No.
Oh, you're like a stone's throw. I mean, not really, but Risa, what town are you in now?
I'm in Alameda.
Okay.
I'm in Fremont, Risa.
Oh, cool.
We really are stone's throw.
Yeah, we are.
A stone's throw and 2 hours of traffic.
Not anymore.
No. I could get to you in 15 minutes, I think.
Yeah.
And then Stacy and Jan, you're both in the
Hi,
Atlanta
Stacy.
area.
Hey, Carmen.
Hey.
And I'm in Fairfield, so I'm out.
You're close too, Sarah.
So I don't know if you heard Stacy and Jan. You guys are both in Atlanta area.
Oh, hey, Stacy.
Hey, Jan. Nice to meet you. We'll have to talk.
Thanks, you too. Yeah.
And there's Alan. Alan, you're going to be overwhelmed by all the ladies here. I apologize again.
That's why I sent my wife upstairs to bed.
Yeah, don't want her to be jealous. So, Alan, tell us where you're dialing in from, because that's fun. You might be the furthest away.
Oh, do I get a prize?
Yeah, you get a trip to Papua New Guinea.
I'll take it. I'm calling in by computer from Udon Thani, Thailand. It's about
Oh my gosh.
60 kilometers south of Vientiane, Laos.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Hello, Jane.
Great.
Hello, Sarah.
Hey, Dan.
So let's see. Hello to Heather. Nice to see you. It's been a really long time since I've seen you.
Been very long. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
What year did we go to Bhutan?
2013.
Wow.
Do people have signs? Did you make little signs?
Oh, I can't see it.
You're not be able to see mine.
I love it.
Wow.
That's great.
Wow.
Oh my God. This just warms my heart.
I'm going to pick my background.
Stacey, you're so creative.
White.
This is great. It's Beth also. Beth also.
Hi.
Nice to see
Beth.
you.
Hey, Beth.
Oh.
Yeah.
What a great idea this is.
I know.
Hi.
This is fabulous. How you doing, Debbie?
Good. How
Hi.
are you?
Hey, Debbie, where are you now?
I'm in Bluffton, South Carolina,
Okay.
Oh.
and the weather's beautiful.
There's Ann Sweeney.
Hi,
How you doing,
how are
Ann?
you?
Good.
Good. I'm going to prep myself up a little bit, I think.
And Betty,
Yes.
I have
Here.
I have a suggestion for you.
Yes.
The only thing we can see is your hair.
Now what?
Your hair.
Oh. Sorry.
There you
I had to hold my head up higher.
I know. You know what? I have to tell you, somebody gave me a tip once, and that was I actually have a couple of books underneath my
That's
laptop.
what I was going to do.
Me
This
too.
is my first time. I'm going to have to do that. Let me
Yeah, lifts it up a little bit, and then I was on a video chat with someone who was recording.
I'm going to get a pillow right quick.
Okay. I was on a video chat with someone who was recording it once for like a program that he was running, and he said, "You know, I can just see up your nose." So you have
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of too.
Nicole is in the house. How you doing, Nicole? And Sandy,
Hi,
you got yourself up. What time did you go to bed last night?
3.
Oh my God.
I set the alarm for 7, so I'd be up, so.
Right on.
That's better.
So, hi, Diane. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet all of you. A newbie.
Yeah.
Me
great.
too. Uh-oh.
There's Susan and Barbara.
Hi. Good morning.
Barbara.
They're calling in from not too far from me, which is great.
Now, Susan and I
There's
have been
Barb.
friends for
Hey,
15
good
years.
morning. I've got to get the coffee cup.
Oh yeah.
Hi,
So I'm gonna have to mute Barb. I know that already.
Katie, I don't know you, but I want to know where to get that fabulous backdrop you have for your teleconferencing.
That's my own personal one. I was going flying to Bora Bora.
Oh, fabulous.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, you can
Beautiful.
change. You can change your backgrounds under preferences, and you can make your own, or you can choose the ones that they have there. I have I've got an India tapestry in the back of mine, so hanging on the wall.
There you go.
I like to leave that on there. It's kind of fun. So, Jane Hunt, how's it going?
Good. How's everyone?
Good. Jane's a flight attendant. So,
I am a flight attendant, but I'm taking time off.
I'll bet.
well, the timing was interesting because you were taking the time off before this all happened. So that
Before we knew about this, they offered this time off because we were so short on the Boeing aircraft.
yeah,
Wow.
good timing. Karen Malloy, how's it going?
Hi.
Nice
And Beth Other, I see you. Hey, Risa. Hey.
Oh, this is fun.
It is.
Little reunion here. There's Lauren.
Hi. There's 2 pages.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, for me, I guess maybe because I'm the host, I'm seeing everybody at this point. I don't know what it's going to look like when somebody else drops on. So there's Cameron.
Hi, Beth.
How's
Hi.
it going?
Hi, whoever you are. Hi, Beth.
Nice to see you.
calling you
And then
Mary
I
Beth.
saw, where'd she go? Oh, now we're on 2 pages. I saw Wendy.
Hi.
Okay, now it's getting big. I got to figure out where everybody is.
Try doing it on an iPhone.
Wendy, nice to meet you, Wendy.
I'm on an iPad.
More than 9 people at a time. Beth,
Pardon?
is there not way to get more than 9 in the gallery at a time for us?
You know, no, I think on a laptop. Are you on a laptop?
I'm on an iPad.
Yeah, I think on an iPad it's 9. On a laptop it might be like 16.
Okay.
I have a little bit more. 1, 2.
25 so far on mine.
25,
Yeah, okay, I've got 25 on mine.
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
So,
Hi, Jane.
Hi. Oh, Jane. Jane Welch.
Jane.
Jane Welch is calling in from near Bath, England.
Oh, wow.
I might have to mute.
I want to go.
Got my tea. Oh.
She's another one I might have to mute.
Why don't you just get us tied up together and we
See, doesn't that work well? Just mute her.
tell you what, I wish I'd bought shares in Zoom.
I know.
Yeah.
I
Don't
know.
we all?
So Emily Rosenberg.
That's actually me, Beth, Darlene.
Oh, Dar, how's it going?
Yeah. I'm doing fine. I came in on Emily's account because I have more time and I'm doing another Zoom. So
Great. I figured. I figured we were. Hey, Jan. I figured we were either getting Zoom bombed or somebody using somebody else's account.
yeah.
Oh, there's
Sorry.
Annie. Hi, Annie.
Can't see Emily though, can we?
Annie.
No, no, we can't see. Emily is actually Darlene. So I just want to see, have I not given a shout out? There's Kim Blazebrook. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Beth.
Oh, Kim, hi.
Anybody else?
Hi, Heather. Good to see you.
Teresa's on
too.
board. A lot of, oh, and there's Molly Devine. Molly, oh my God, I haven't seen you in
A blast from the past.
100 years.
Only 11, I realized last night.
Oh gosh, wow.
Uh-oh.
Happened. Uh-oh.
What happened?
I know it happened to me.
We're
too.
back.
Okay, everything's
good.
normal.
Okay.
Where are Susan and Barbara now?
Pardon?
We're
Oh, no,
here.
they're
Oh,
here.
okay, okay.
Hi, I'm
Yeah.
drinking my tea out of the cup I made in Ireland.
Yay.
Right.
Yay.
Oh, that's,
Oh, lovely.
that's way too small.
Cool.
Oh, but I have a ton of them.
I have my Morocco.
Look at her.
I've
Yeah,
got my,
I've got my Morocco mug.
me too.
Oh, cool.
Croatian
I
mug,
want
nice
one of
and espresso.
Okay, so I'm going to do another quick round here. Oh, there's Julie. Hi, Julie. Julie Medley. She's still connecting to audio. She's over. She's not too far from me. She's like over in Bellevue. And the plan was she was supposed to come over to my house like right after the Morocco tour, and then everything just went and just shut down. So
That's Joe.
she had,
Well, and I still have your pottery from Ireland. You still have to come up and get your pottery for me. Yeah.
I know. Oh, crazy. I know. Oh my gosh. Okay.
There's Joe.
Somebody said there's Joe. Oh, Joe. Hi, Joe. Nice to see you. It's been a couple of years here in Seattle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
Joe,
Eddie.
is that Joe?
yes, no, it's Joe.
Oh, hi, Maureen. Hi, Joe. It's Bo. How are you?
You might be on different screens. So,
Okay, I know.
and Julie, welcome, Julie. You're on audio, I think, just audio.
Blimey, there's loads of us.
Yeah, I know. Isn't this great? I know. So there may be some other folks who are still joining, because I know there are some other people who responded. But what I'm going to do is just kind of start here to give you a little bit of lay of the land. Oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Can we just do this every couple of weeks or so?
I think it's the way it's going to go, girls.
I know, yeah, I know. So right now, this is actually much more manageable than I expected. People are being quite nice. And I thought everybody was going to be talking over each other. But what I am going to do, I think, is I'm going to mute everyone at once. And then in that way, let's see. Teresa, sorry, I'm looking at the chat window.
I got it.
I'm getting distracted myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shortly mute everybody, and that'll allow for background noise or anything. It won't interrupt. And then there's a chat window that if you haven't found it yet, I know on a laptop on the very bottom of the screen, if you scroll over on the bottom, it gives you some navigation, and you can click on chat, and then a little chat window will pop up on the right-hand side. And so if you have any specific questions, you can just tap them in there. And Teresa is going to be feeding them to me. Now I have a bunch of questions that people had emailed me to begin with. And so I will, I'll start with those, and then Teresa will feed me some other questions. You can send private questions. There's a little button on the very bottom. It says to everyone, or you can just change that and you can say like to Teresa. And you can send, if you don't want it public, you can send her a private message, and then she'll relay that to me, and then I'll answer it for you. So just a heads up, the call is being recorded, and what I would love to do is I'd like to be able to share this with other tour people who haven't been able to make it on this call, just so that they can also hear the answers. If you don't want to be on the video, we can turn your video off. So I just wanted to be upfront that it is being recorded. And if you need to drop off the call early, if you've got something going on, absolutely do that. Don't feel guilty about it. It's no problem. And then also, if you want to just turn off your video because you have to multitask, you have to do dishes or something, don't worry about that either. You can let it roll in the background. It seems like everybody's on here and has it figured out. If you do have any technical difficulties, you can send a note to Teresa directly in that chat window. She can help you. She can try to help you problem solve. But I think if you're on here, you've got it figured out already. So shouldn't be a problem at this point. Everybody good to go?
Yep.
Yeah. Are there any questions technically before I mute? Annie, who's there? Is that Julia? Hi.
Hi.
Nice
How
to
are
see
you?
Great. Nice to see you.
See you.
Okay, so let me figure out my own navigation here and see about muting. Okay, give me a second. I had this.
Hi, Cameron.
Hi, whoever that is.
Where's Maxie?
Joe.
Joe, hi.
My baby Maxie.
I'm trying to get him.
Oh, okay, I'm going to be muting everybody. Okay, now everybody's muted. Okay. So this is what I'm going to start with. I thought what I would do is just kind of first give you guys and gals and guys, a little bit of background on WanderTours so that you kind of understand what's going on with the company. And I've had so many emails and texts and phone calls from people who've been concerned for me. They say, oh, I know you've had to cancel a lot of tours, or this is a really difficult time for you as a company, as a small business. And the fact is that right now it hasn't been difficult for me, and I just want to express that to everyone. And I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to unmute everybody because it bothers me to have everybody muted. I like a little background noise. I feel like I'm not talking to anybody. So I had to unmute you. So, also, thanks for your patience, as this is the first time I've done this. So I'm going to be stumbling through a little bit to figure out what works best. So
Hey,
anyway.
Beth, you know we're going to behave because we're scared of you.
Yeah, good. I'm going to mute you.
Oh. Yeah, mute her.
So just to give you a little bit of background, like I said, because I know a lot of people are concerned, and I'm in touch with a lot of people in my community of travel, like tour operators, and a lot of my colleagues, and I know a lot of them are really struggling. And they have a different business model than I do. They might be a little bit bigger. And I think what's happened is some of the bigger tour companies are struggling more because they have, just with their cash flow is different than mine. So I wanted to just kind of give you a peek behind the scenes so you understand kind of how I run the business. So first, here in Washington State, we have a law, which I think is fantastic, where a tour operator, anybody who's running a tour business, has to have, it's a trust account. It's basically an escrow. So when you pay me a deposit or make any payments toward your tour, it goes into a bank account that technically I cannot touch. Now, I do know that there are some tour companies that actually don't have that, and they are more of like a cash in, cash out business, and they don't have those reserves. But with my business, I have a special bank account. Sometimes if I send you a refund check, it'll actually say on there, I think it might say like a trust account on there. It's very different than just my business account. So any funds that have come in for future tours are in a separate account and they just sit there. Now, once a tour is over, then, and I've paid out everything for my tour operator, then I move that into a business account, which is more of an operating business account in my bank. So I've got a couple of different business accounts, and then I pay myself out of that business account. So like this virus, this epidemic couldn't have happened at a better time for me, because this particular year is one where I'm not offering as many tours as usual. And it's because I have a lot of personal travel that's coming up. So I did the Morocco tour in February, and then I've got Papua New Guinea in August, and I've got Morocco in the fall, and then a couple of tours early next year. So if I had had my usual culinary tours this spring, Teresa and I would be scrambling right now trying to figure out like how to rebook people, or, you know, kind of how to refund and that sort of thing. But at this point, because I would have paid out to my my ground operators, like my hotels and everything, so I would have paid out money, but then would have had to cancel the tours. And I hope this is all making sense to you. It makes sense to me, but I hope I'm not giving you too much information as well. But I think it's important that you understand the health of the company. So, so this couldn't have happened at a better time, because I'm not having to scramble and cancel tours for which I've paid all my vendors for. So that is fantastic news. The unfortunate thing is now is that my own personal travels are being canceled and rescheduled. I know a lot of you know this already, but I was scheduled this year to run a bunch of events around the world. So I was supposed to be in Namibia right now, running across the Namib Desert. And in June, I'm supposed to go to Mongolia to run across the Gobi Desert. That trip, I'm sure it will be canceled or postponed, but I have not heard anything yet. So right now, I still have my flights for it. I haven't made any changes to it. And then I'm scheduled to be in the Atacama in September and Antarctica in November, again, to run these races. So those things are still on the schedule, but everybody's kind of taking things day by day at this point. Just kind of not knowing what's going to happen. So all of that is to say that business-wise, WanderTours is in a great financial position, because I had planned for kind of this downtime already, financially planned for it. And I'm not, there's enough money in the bank to float me for quite a long time, to float the company for a long time. Hopefully, until we get out of this thing, which, who knows how long it's going to be. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that. Does anybody have any questions about that at all? I don't know if that was too much information or just maybe puts people at ease. Like I said, I get a lot of emails from people who are really concerned about the company, and I just wanted to let everybody know who's interested. It's all cool. It's all fun. So the next thing that I want to just chat about is upcoming tours, because that's the other thing I know a lot of people have questions about. What we're going to do, what I'm going to do, what the decisions are around that. And frankly, I don't have a solid decision right now. So the next tour that I have coming up is Papua New Guinea in August. And, there's a lot of, the Alan's holding up his sign. So
Katie also.
Katie.
Yeah. So
there we go, another hey.
So the thing about that, it's a sensitive destination for one thing, because it's filled with indigenous people and indigenous tribes, and their healthcare system is lacking quite a bit. So Right now, like I said, I haven't made a solid decision, but at this point, I'm in a lot of conversations with the show committee, people who are on the show committee for this big event that we go to in August, the Mountain Hagen show. I'm in contact with my tour operator there. I'm in contact with the guides who live there, just trying to assess the situation. I'm in touch with tour operators and guides who live here in the US who actually go there each year as well. So I'm keeping my finger kind of on the pulse of what's happening, trying to figure out, like, they might move the show date. They're trying to figure out whether they're going to keep the show date. So at this point, I don't have a solid answer. I mean, I have a tour, like I'm supposed to be going somewhere in June, and I don't even know if that's happening, you know, like officially, whether that's happening or not. I have not heard word about it. So basically, you know, things, as you know, are unfolding every day. There's always a new bit of information that we're learning. So at this point, I'm just kind of hanging tight without a solid decision on that. The same goes with Morocco. We've got a Morocco tour, and I know some of you on this call are part of that Morocco tour in October.
Oh,
and yeah, I know probably a lot of you. And same with that. I think it's just way too early to tell at this point what's going to happen with that Morocco tour. And then also we've got Morocco in February, and then an India trip, Gujarat, India in March. So everything's a little bit up in the air until until we know more, for one thing. But until it comes down to really having to make a decision on it. And I don't want to wait to the last minute. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm just saying right now, I don't feel comfortable making a solid decision, especially about those tours that are coming like in the fall and then early next year. So, Tiffany had just popped in on a chat and said there's 8 reported cases right now in PNG, and the country's on lockdown. I don't think that they just opened up. I know international flights aren't allowed in, and I know up until very recently, or it's still happening, there's no domestic flights, and then every village is locked down. There's military at the areas of all the villages, and no one's allowed to go anywhere at all.
It's going to be a disaster if it gets there.
Right.
Yeah.
Wipe them out.
It will indeed. Yeah. So that's definitely what we want. We want to prevent that. So, you know, I have to admit that this severity and the enormity of this has only really hit me in the last probably 2 weeks or so, because I've been like, we're going to be through this quickly, you know, because I'm not one. I know there's been a lot of information in the news, and I know that there's been, you know, these big projections, but I'm not one to buy into like the big fear factor of things. So I've just been thinking like, this is overblown,
right?
You know, just, you know, steer ahead, you know, just keep going. And then it really has been in the last couple of weeks when I thought like, okay, I'm starting to really get this. And I'm sorry if I'm slow on the uptick with this, but it's my more positive outlook, and someone who doesn't buy into like all the fear of things. When other people are saying, don't go to Morocco, I'm saying, let's go to Morocco. So that's kind of the place where I'm coming from.
We're 2 weeks behind Italy. So in the UK, we've been watching the tragedy that has been happening in Italy and Spain, and that, you know, that really puts things into perspective.
Right. Yep. But, you know, with early shutdowns, you know, like in Seattle, we shut down super early. We've been able to manage it pretty quickly. I think it's, you know, New York, big population. They just had a more difficult time. We have a guest.
Oh, I was wondering where John was. Hi, John. my gosh, there's so many of you. I don't know where to look.
I know. So there's two screens too. So a lot of you know John. So I asked him to come in here and say hi.
Hi, John.
Yeah.
Stay well.
You.
I know. Look,
Yeah.
Stacy,
Wow, look at them
Tiffany.
all.
I know.
Can't keep track of it all. Hi, Risa.
I know. It's great.
Yeah.
He's just looking around. There's Beth
Yeah.
also.
Hi from Canada.
You're all
Yeah.
postage stamp size people. Yeah.
Annie.
Yeah.
Yeah, fun.
Fun.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Hi from San Diego.
Yeah, hi. Well, I hope you're all doing well and stay well. Be well, stay well out there.
You too.
You too.
Yeah.
Jane.
Yeah. Other than like needing a haircut, I think I'm fine here.
He finally broke down and went and got some.
Clippers. I thought I would
I've
experiment
got
with
the
a
dog
mullet.
clippers out.
Yeah.
Jane, you look beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done, Jane. All right. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon,
Good
wherever
morning.
you are. See you soon.
Hey, Bonnie.
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
Alan's dialing in from Thailand. It's like 11 o'clock.
Wow.
10:30. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's fun.
10:30.
Yeah. So okay. So too early to tell. Where was I on that? So just too early to tell at this point. And part of that, like I said, I'm still kind of grasping with everything at this point. You know, we'll just have to see, like I said, how things unfold on a daily basis. So before I move into questions that people had written into me via email, are there any questions about what I've said so far that anybody either wants to just pop in the chat window or ask here?
I know that you know, for your company that things are good for you, but what about these other places that there have been so many cancellations, and will these places continue to operate once this is said and done?
Yeah.
And it's probably a question that cannot be answered right now.
Well, you know what? I can actually. I think a solid answer is difficult to give you, but I can give you kind of a general answer for it. So for one, it's going to depend on the company, and it's going to depend on how they handle their finances. So I know I've got a very good friend here who runs a pretty big travel company, and by big, I'm saying he's probably got, they probably deal with more than, I'm going to guess 300 to 500 people a year. So it's like a medium-sized company. And they have been able to move almost all of their tour people to 2021. They made a decision, I think, I'm fairly certain they made a decision to just move all of their 2020 tours to 2021. And all but a handful of people, and we're talking like 3 people, have rebooked and they're doing the tour in 2021. So they're smart business people. They've been in business for a long time, and that is going to be great for them. They're going to be able to just move that business forward. There are other companies that one, they don't manage their money quite as well. That's one part of it. But then I have a number of friends, because we're in the Pacific Northwest, who have outdoor industry companies that rely on summer business. And so what's happened for them is, let's say a lot of their clients come from out of state, are planning to come from out of state this summer. They've paid for their trip, and in turn, that company paid their operators around let's say the national parks or around different places. So they don't have money in the bank. And then those people have canceled their trips. They don't want to come to Seattle in the summertime. And they want their money back, because now they don't know when they're going to come back to Seattle, but that money is gone. Those kinds of companies may be out of business because they can't recover from that kind of a loss. But it, again, then it depends on maybe a stimulus package, if they're, you know, depending on the size of it, if they're able to get loans, you know, pay loans that they don't have to pay back, to float them for that. So yeah, I think it's just going to depend on the company. It's going to depend on how they manage their finances and really what kind of position they're in. So for the big companies, like I would imagine, like the Gate ones and the Rick Steves and you know, and Tauks, like the big companies, I imagine that they've got money in reserve and that they are figuring out, you know, how to move forward. Those big companies aren't going to fail. So, you know, it could be that like the medium-sized companies that again, that have a lot of summer business are probably going to be the ones that'll fare the worst in this. So is that helpful?
It is. You know, I'm thinking more like, say, like a hotel, because we've had hotels already start to close in Boston because of this, and restaurants and places that are just, you know, and like there's a hotel in Boston that's been around for over 100 years that has closed its doors. And I'm thinking of Hotel Buckminster, Karen, in Kenmore Square.
Right.
And so places like that, you know, that are not going to be able to sustain this economic, you know, because it's not just United States. This is so global, and I know that other countries will fare better either because they were able to contain it quicker, and you know, in their financial reserves, and it's just probably a wait and see, you know, avenue right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the interesting thing is that I thought, like in the beginning of this, I thought, oh gosh, I've got some downtime. I can work on tours for 2021. And I was looking at the New Orleans, Santa Fe, and Seattle culinary tours and started working on those. And what I found out was, like, all the businesses had closed down. So some of them went out of business. They just, like, Ride the Ducks, which some of you were on here in Seattle, Ride the Ducks closed down permanently. And then I haven't been able to get answers for, like, the hotels, because the hotels right now are closed temporarily.
Right.
I thought, oh, I've got this time. I can work on the future. And then I just haven't been able to get answers from people. So, and then the fact is that even if I can get answers, it goes back to Beth Also's question. It's like, are they going to be in business, you know, in a year? And it's an unknown. So I think there's going to have to be, even with my future tours, there's going to have to be some flexibility in terms of the itinerary, because we don't know what the landscape's going to look like in another year. I may have to change.
Can I tell you what's happening here in the UK? So we everything here has closed. Everything has closed for the last 3 weeks. Everything is closed. Hotels, restaurants, everything. The only places that are open are supermarkets. But what the government here are doing, they're furloughing staff. So staff are being paid by the government 80% of their salary.
Wow.
Across the
That's
board.
amazing.
Wow.
So, for example, the university where I work, that's all been closed, obviously, and the staff there have been furloughed, and the government are paying 80% of the salaries.
And I was going to jump in. This is Katie. I don't know anyone because I'm brand new, and I work for the Walt Disney Company, and we close all of our 32 hotels as well as the whole theme park.
Yeah.
Not just Disney, but other hotels. I hear what they are doing. I can't say the names. That they're actually doing future reservations thing. They don't know when it may open, but if you want to make a reservation because they want to have some income coming in, and the same as everyone else, we all got furloughed. 77,000 people got furloughed at Disney. So everything's closed unless it has to be open. But you know, I think it will come back gradually. But it is what it is right now.
Yeah, the only thing I say we've got supermarkets, vets are open, obviously doctors' surgeries are open, but you can call you call online if you just need to chat to someone about whatever's going on. But yeah, we've been
Katie,
locked
can
down
people
for the
make
last 2
future
weeks.
reservations at Disney? Is
I don't know
Disney
if about Disney. It wasn't, I just heard it from another organization, so I'm not sure about Disney, to be quite frank, and my gut is saying probably not right now. They're in the process of talking about with our governor how to open up the state by the end of this month. So I don't know if they're doing the future reservations, but I heard other hotels, and I don't know the names. It's just people who have been telling me who are out there hearing these things. So people are just, I think companies are trying to figure out how they can start getting some liquidity and some money coming in, even if they don't know when they actually might start opening up.
Right.
Yeah.
Beth, I was going to tell you, my sister's in corporate travel, and so she's been talking to her companies. They want to, her company is a travel management corporate company, like a Carlson or American Express.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking to their companies about what your future travel plans are. Their CFO in Colorado wants them to forecast when these companies like Heineken and Sotheby's and other major companies will come online and start traveling again. And her staff kind of chuckling, saying, how are we going to forecast that? Because when you bring but the companies want to come back online, and they do say from a corporate culture standpoint, they want to travel. It's part of their business model. So they're trying to put all the pieces together. When will the hotels open? Will there be restaurants in place when, they come over from Europe, to a specific city? What hotels will house them? They have to renegotiate relationships. They seem eager to reopen. Like I know Germany, I think, reopened on Monday, calibrating the level of, shops, calibrating the number, calibrating your ability to open based on your number of employees and your type of business.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it might,
Joe, is that the smaller the business you can open, or the larger the business?
Smaller. They were starting in smaller, and my daughter in public health said, we'll just watch and see how those countries reopen. We'll learn from them and, follow suit.
And unfortunately, each state is doing something different. There are some places like in Georgia, which is silly right now, having barbershops and I mean, how do you do social
unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and here
a bowling alley.
So everything is different right now, and I think people are just having, even if they say the state is open, I think more people are going to say I'll stand back and wait, because either I'll do my own hair or I'll keep on cooking myself until I really feel safe. Because
aren't people protesting in some of the states for about lockdown?
Oh yes,
Big
time.
That's
crazy. So
crazy
Jane,
people.
Jane, to get back to your point about the government furloughing, we have this huge infusion of cash that came in to small business owners and to individuals that is supposed to be very similar to that, but unfortunately, and this kind of goes back to kind of WanderTours, is that I think by the time I figured out that I should probably maybe apply for one of the business loans, like I was a week late, because the business loans dried up in a day. They dried up so quickly, and it's just terrible. But then I will say that I've applied for unemployment. And I think what I'm going to do, in case you see this on the website, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut down the ability for people to register for future tours. For now, just like contact me if they want to join a future tour. And that's because I don't want to alarm you if you happen to go to the website and see this, but it's because I don't want any income showing it like coming into my bank account if I'm trying to apply for unemployment, if I end up getting unemployment. Because really, like your $800 deposit will look like income to, Washington State, but it's not income. It's what is technically called pass through, because that money then goes directly to my, my tour operator basically. So I just have to make sure that that gets shut down, so that at least if I have unemployment, it means that I'm not drawing from that business account in order, just for my living expenses, which will be quite nice for me, and then we'll, just extend things even further for me. But just Jane, to your point, is that we are supposed to also have these safety nets here. It's just that the process has been so technically difficult and just fraught with issues and probably corruption and all sorts of things that it's the small business.
Don't worry, we see your issues, the big guy.
You're well aware.
We see him.
So I'm going to move on to just some of the questions that came through from people, like I said, in email. And if you do, as I'm talking, if you do have questions, directly for me that you'd like to answer. And I have to say, I love the sharing that's going on here. So thank you very much for that. I think that's fantastic. And I don't want to dissuade you from doing that. But if you do have questions directed to me, you can use that chat window, and then Teresa will be kind of monitoring that, and she'll alert me if there's a specific question that I should answer. But I've got lots here. And just as a frame of reference, I scheduled this for an hour and a half. Drop off anytime if you need to go. It's no problem, like I said before. And we can go longer as well if this keeps going. So it's not a problem on my point. I have coffee and I have a backup. So Kim Glazebrook, she's on the call, had asked a few questions that I want to address. And I talked about this a little bit in the beginning. She said she's interested in my thoughts on when it will be responsible to travel to developing countries once travel opens up. And she said, I would hate to think my travel might risk bringing the virus to a country with limited health care. And I think that is such an important question to ask, because I know a lot of us do travel to developing countries where the healthcare system might not be so great. I guess my short answer is time will tell. Like now is not the time for sure to be going to these places. It's just difficult to tell when will be appropriate. I think as we get information, like I said, that's coming out every day, I know that new kind of testing is coming to see if people have been infected and therefore won't be infected again or won't pass it on to people. I think, who knows, there may be some technology involved that will allow us be able to travel to places a little bit more quickly than we're thinking about it today. So I wanted to address the question, but then also say I don't really have an answer for it. I didn't want to just ignore it. It's something that is on my mind, and it is something that, as I said, I have a weekly call with colleagues of mine who are also tour operators. So in the travel industry, many of them are in the adventure space. Some of them are in the outdoor industry, as I mentioned. But we're having weekly calls to talk about exactly these things and to discuss them. So it's something that I've got, that I'm on top of. I just don't have an answer for it right now. Someone else had asked, I'm going to pop, I think it was another Kim too, who asked a question, because I think this ties into it. Would evacuation insurance typically cover returning travelers home during a global pandemic? And
that's a great question.
Yeah, and I bring that up because there are countries where you wouldn't want to be stuck, right? I think the short answer for that is that, well, no, I think there's two parts to that question, or two parts to the answer. And one is, if you were sick, your evacuation insurance would probably get you out of the country, because that's what evacuation insurance is for. So it's for, if you're ill, you get injured, you can get yourself out of the country to the nearest hospital or facility where you can be taken care of. I do not think evacuation insurance, if people were stuck in Morocco, for example, and needed to get out, I don't think evacuation insurance would help you with that. There were probably, I don't know, does anybody know anyone, or were you stuck in a country where you had to get out? Nobody? Okay. I don't know. Yeah.
I actually know someone who's in Jamaica right now, and they from Canada, and now Jamaica, I believe, has shut down their borders, so they can't get out until at least June. So they're just hanging tight and hanging out, and hopefully they can come home when
There's
borders
also
reopen.
people, we've got some of our UK citizens stuck in Peru as well.
They still haven't gotten them out?
No, they've got some of them out, but there's also several people that are too far away to get to the airport, so they're having to basically hunker down in a hostel.
Okay. And Heather, why can't your friend get out of Jamaica?
She actually originally went, she got married there, and so she decided to go through with the wedding, and she probably should have left when this all initially started, but she left it, and I think she's kind of a bit screwed herself over in the sense that now they've shut down the borders. But she's kind of one of those people that just goes with the flow, and she doesn't seem worried about it. But I do know that they are taking precautions down in Jamaica, and that they are doing quarantines and everything like that.
So they won't even let her out?
As far as I know, yeah.
There's probably no flights.
Yeah,
the whole Caribbean is shut down. The whole Caribbean is shut down. Flights have stopped. Even sailing, people are stuck on their sailboats because they can't get out.
Oh,
wow.
Molly, you have a question?
I have, two things. One is I have a friend who was stranded in rural India, and working with the State Department, they were finally able to arrange for a number of expats to meet at a certain location. They got them travel permission to get to a spot where they could get on a bus together, then to go to New Delhi, but she had to sign a promissory note for a one-way flight for $2,500 back to the States.
Wow.
That was the only, because the flights are closed, so it had to be through the governments. And then in Costa Rica, right now, they've just had an expat flight arranged by United Airlines from San Jose to Houston, and it was directly through United, but they had two dates, one a week, and it was $1,400 to fly, to book, and they were sold out because they had that clearance window. But other than that, the borders are closed. So people are really sick right now.
Similar thing happening here. Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, your evacuation insurance is pretty much not going to help you out in the case of something like this, in an emergency like this. I will say, just in terms of travel insurance, is that they are, like, policies are changing frequently. And, you know, if you bought, like, I buy a year-long policy, right? And I actually haven't looked at mine, but I buy a year-long policy through MedJet. And I will bet you anything that if I printed out that policy and I compared it to what they're offering now, it would look very different. And I know that companies are being, I won't say that it's MedJet because I have no idea, but I know that some companies are just being unscrupulous and not honoring what was in their contract, you know, or in their paperwork 6 months ago, because they're trying to stay afloat themselves. They're trying to figure out how they can still run their business and not have all these payouts. So, yeah, I mean, I have an Airbnb. Some of you know I have an Airbnb at my house, and Airbnb has changed their policies for hosts. Like, it was coming daily. I was getting these updates, and basically they're not paying out hosts at all for any cancellation. So we've really kind of gotten the shaft on that. So I know that from personal experience, how these contracts are being changed on a daily basis without honoring what was in the contract, you know, 3 months ago or 4 months ago when you signed it with them.
I just have a quick follow-up on that. With experience that I've had recently and with friends is when the government says the border is going to be closed in 48 hours, get yourself out if you're going to get out.
Yep.
I mean, listen, you got to not just, when you travel, you have to be in contact a little bit with what's going on in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing too is that once you get back, because I know people who have had to be quarantined in Canada and then also here in the US. So they've had to self-quarantine for a couple of weeks for like 14 days.
Right.
Once they get back from a country. I have a friend who came back from India and he had to self-quarantine in his apartment, or it was a hotel. He got stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks. So, okay. So this is kind of funny. I had one person ask, if you had a crystal ball, when do you think the global travel advisory will be lifted? And the global travel advisories, the U.S. government has said, do not travel. It's like level 4, do not travel to any other country. And then someone else said, lacking a crystal ball, it's impossible to answer all the questions. So everybody's got crystal balls on their mind, which I thought was really funny. But yeah, I don't know. It's that the global travel advisory is really difficult. Like if my spidey sense would be that it would open up by country, that it's not going to be a global lift, like it's a global shutdown, right? But I don't think that it's going to be a global lift. I think they might say it's safe to travel to Ireland, but it may not be safe to travel to Thailand or some other place, or maybe a region that has had, or to Italy where they've had more infections. And then of course it's going to depend on the airlines. I think airlines are running at a 20% capacity right now, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll follow up. I've got some great links and websites for you to kind of read that you may want to just kind of keep your eye on. There is a website, I think Forbes is keeping this website where it has all of the airlines information and kind of what their policies are and what their policy changes are. And they're updating it like every day or every other day or so. But I think a lot of the airlines are now working at about a 20% capacity. So if you can get a flight, like I have a flight to New Jersey at the end of May, and it got changed. Delta changed the flight, and when I looked at the options, there's now only 2 options, like 2 flights that are flying from Seattle to, I'll be flying into JFK. There's only 2 flights that are going at this point, so there's just a lot of limited options, and I have no idea if that trip is even going to happen, if those flights will even happen. So we'll have to see. Let's see. So Robin actually asked, she's interested to know how the travel industry will determine if and when travel can begin again, and what do people think about kind of this second wave of the virus?
Yeah.
And I think that ties in a little bit to what I was just saying is like the crystal ball, we just don't know. And, I have seen some reports that they're expecting a second wave, in the fall. But it's too hard to tell at this point. You just don't know. My honest answer and kind of what I am doing personally is it's a wait and see. So I have flights that I booked, I think back in, it was either late February or early March for June, like before everything just really kind of crashed. So I have flights to New Jersey and to Mongolia in late May and early June. Now I have trips that I'm supposed to take in August, September, October, November, and December. And I don't have any of those booked. For me, it's a wait and see at this point. I'm okay with kind of holding back on booking and risking maybe fewer options or a little bit higher flight cost. but because we just don't know what's going to happen at that point. And honestly, like if you're on a tour with me that's scheduled for that time period, like for either Papua New Guinea or Morocco, even in the early part of next year, I would just say hold off on booking your flights at this point. Until we
Too late. Too late.
It's okay.
Too late.
No, I know a number of people already have their flights booked. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, because airlines are being quite liberal with their policies in terms of changes.
I'm not concerned about that. Yeah.
Pardon?
I'm not concerned about the flight. You
Me
can,
either.
I can
I'm glad I had mine.
cancel that or.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, Wendy, is that, if you don't mind me just kind of calling you out because you went like this, what's your concern around that? Are you concerned because I'm suggesting that the tour might not happen, or are you concerned because you might be out that money because you don't know what's going to happen with the airline?
My concern is that I'll be out that money. I haven't even picked up a tour insurance, a trip insurance. I haven't done that because I've been afraid. I don't know whether to get my insurance. I don't even know if it's too late to get my trip insurance now with all this happening.
Yep. So I know you had asked me that in a question. I was going to get to that. Usually you have to buy travel insurance shortly after you book your trip, your tour, or your flight. We are under, extenuating circumstances here. And what airline are you flying?
Air Morocco.
Okay. I don't know anything about Air Morocco, kind of about their policies. I'm just more familiar with the Delta. But my sense is that they are going to be liberal about their changes for flights. So, change fees are, in the scheme of things, change fees are pretty minor when it comes to the cost of a trip. So I think your other question was, when will I make a decision to cancel the trip? And I don't have an answer for you on that right now. And is postponing it to another date an option? Absolutely. It's just as I mentioned to you, my friends who've got hundreds of people that they're working with. I'm fortunate in one way that I don't have hundreds of you, but my friends who have hundreds of people that they're having to rebook, they've just shifted it to the next year. And that's exactly what we would do, is we would just shift the tours until we know that it's a good solid time to travel.
My concern is the second wave. I mean, we're in uncharted waters here. We don't know what's going on, but the CDC, the WHO, they're basing a lot of their predictions on the 1918 Spanish influenza pandemic. Okay, and they're trying to get a sense of what's going to happen, what could possibly happen with this pandemic. And the 1918 pandemic had, I believe it was 3 waves that came. Things quieted down, businesses opened up, and then we got hit again. Mm-hmm. And my fear is that things will quiet down. I mean, it's not a fear. I hope things do quiet down. I hope things do return to normal. But that after things return to normal, we'll get hit with a second wave.
Right. Well, I will say this, that things will not return to normal. We have more knowledge. We have more knowledge than we did 100 years ago. So things will not return to normal. So what will be normal will be for people to be wearing masks out in public, to be extending the social distancing when you go into
no handshaking.
Yeah, no handshaking, no kissing, in public, that kind of thing. Your friends, and restaurants may continue to struggle with either limited sit-down service or no sit-down service, and they'll continue with their takeout service. And what that's going to do is that's going to help stave off a bigger second wave. And so I think we're just going to have a new normal that's just going to be different. And because we have different ways of testing than they did back, again, 100 years ago, we're going to be able to do early detection once we get our shit together, pardon my French. Once we get that all together, we are going to be able to do more testing. We're going to be able to understand things much more quickly than they did 100 years ago. Whether it's through temperature taking, whether it's through pulse oximeter, testing, whether it's through antibodies, we've just got so much more at our disposal than we did, and that's going to be super helpful.
Are you doing tracking apps there? Are they doing tracking apps in the United States?
Yeah, there are tracking apps here. I'm not super familiar with it. I've got somebody just posted on my Facebook page yesterday, I think 2 tracking apps that are available. At least one is here in the Seattle area that they're using, and I don't have a lot of information about that. But if you're on Facebook, you can look at one of my most recent posts. I think it was my rant that I just posted yesterday morning. Someone in the comments actually put some information in there about the tracking apps on there.
I was going to say, this is two things I was going to say, going back to, we say, the second wave. There was something on the news saying there was the concern about the second wave in the fall, because you might have, the pandemic, the virus coming around, but also you have the flu. So you have both coming back, and people are not sure, do I have the flu, do I have coronavirus, and whether people are going to be lax. So that's one thing. But going back to the comment about the airlines, what I've been hearing, and how true it is, I'm not sure, it seems like as long as you don't want a refund from the airlines, you're okay. But if you want to change, they're waiving change fees and whatnot. So changing your dates, but trying to get money back from airlines seems to be the harder thing. So change fees are fine. So that's why I'm saying I've got my flight right now. If I got to change it without getting a change fee, fine. But anyway, so I think they're trying to work with everyone, but getting the refund from the larger airlines will be the hardest.
Well, for Delta, what they have done for me is they gave me a credit for the full amount of my flight with no change fee, and I can just use that for a future flight. And I fly enough Delta that it's not a big deal for me, but at least no change fee in terms of that. So, but yeah, something to be aware of, with the airlines. And like I said, things are changing so much. They're coming out with new policies pretty frequently. I will, like I said, I'll make sure that I send you this Forbes article. I actually linked to it in my newsletter that went out yesterday, but I'll send it to everybody who's been on the call, just so you have that, because it's a really good, solid resource for what the airlines are doing pretty much on a daily basis.
May I interject something here related to the 1918 pandemic and what you just said, Beth, about more knowledge now? A lot of this does not operate on a knowledge level, as you well know, in the U.S. And yeah, Beth, also, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if you look at the history of the 1918 and where they flattened the curves and where they didn't, a lot of that was like the same stuff that's going on now. Some areas open early and go back to the beach, and some areas continue to be rigorous, maintaining masks and social distancing. So, I mean, we weren't apparently in 1918 behaving in a cohesive way, and certainly we're not now. So I think this feeds into my worry about this whole second wave.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why everyone has to do for themselves. You do you, because right now the government is not taking care of yourself, or they care about people. So you have to be whatever you can do for yourself to make you feel self comfortable. That's it, because they can open up Florida, but I'm not going to a restaurant. I'm not going anywhere. I have my mask. I'm doing my social distancing, because they do not care about people. It's about politics, and I'm not going to go anymore because I get pissed off.
Right, and I will say one word. I'll say one word to that. Darwin.
Yeah.
Right. Right on.
It is.
I mean, the planet will survive. We might not survive, but the planet will go carry on. That's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
If it carries on, the world will
Beth?
survive. We will just evolve, just like
Beth, this is Cameron. I gotta go, and I don't
Cameron.
I don't see a way to write a little note like others have done.
No problem. We'll
But
get
I just want to. I have to go get my granddaughter. I'm daycare grandma at the moment. I've really enjoyed your newsletter and all your upbeat. And the rant was funny, a funny change of pace. So I wish you well. Sounds like you've got it under control.
Thanks, Cameron.
And-
I'll keep you posted. We'll do this again. I'll keep you posted on that. We'll get you in the chat so you can see where the chat is if you in the future if you want to chat in there. No
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Beth, may I ask a question? It's Diane.
Yeah, go ahead, Diane. Yeah.
My concern about the second, my concern more is what's the situation going to be in Morocco relative to the second wave or their first wave, or handling it there. I think that's pretty critical to know before October, what's going to. And my second concern or question would be, since the trip is, the final payment is supposed to be August something, I forget the date, but do you think you'll have a decision about Morocco by then?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because what will happen is I would not accept any final payments from anyone without knowing for sure one way or the other. And that absolutely. So no, that would not be due. I would definitely make a decision well before that. And you do bring up a good point about that kind of that second wave thing. Again, I'm cautiously optimistic, or I'm hopeful, and maybe this is like the Pollyanna in me, that we are sorting out testing and looking at antibodies and being able to have a better idea of how this might unfold in the coming weeks, months. And I don't have a solid answer for you. I just know that if there was any doubt at all, I would not accept any kind of final payment from you. I mean, part of that is that I would then, there's a point where I have to make non-refundable payments, to Morocco. And frankly, Morocco is one tour where I have made non-refundable payments for the October trip. And so I can't just let that go. I mean, I could, it would be a big loss for me, but I wouldn't just let that go. It's something that would just get kicked into 2021. That's one reason for it. But yeah, part of it is, I mean, part of it, frankly, is just a financial decision on my part, just preserving the business. Is my final payments to Morocco would be due. I'm not gonna accept your money if I'm not gonna pay them, kind of thing, that pass through. So,
but how is your information or your sources of information for what's going on in Morocco?
Well, so I've got all of my contacts there in Morocco. My tour operators, my tour operator, who they actually live in Morocco, but they are Americans. So those folks and the guides there, and just like the tour operator and the people who work for them are my sources of information. Plus anything that comes across on the State Department site, or any of the government alerts here in the U.S. as well.
Okay, thank you for that information. I have to sign off as well, but
okay.
It's nice to see and meet all of you. And
no problem. And Diane,
doing it again.
Yep, and Diane, I will say too that I regularly check the websites that are alerting, that like have daily updates for number of cases in each of the countries as well. Worldometer, I think, is one of them. So there's a number of websites. So I keep track of that as well.
Well, I don't know much about Morocco. Obviously.
Yeah.
I want to go there, but you know, how are they equipped to handle an epidemic there, you know, the pandemic there, because surely they'll have to. Every country has to.
Yeah.
So that's just a concern going forward. I don't know that there's
Absolutely.
an answer for it, but
Right. Yeah.
yeah. But thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on the call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Was there another question? Did somebody say something?
No, I just said we're all in the same boat.
Oh yeah, yeah, we are. So I think this might be for Wendy. This answer. Teresa was nice enough to text me something about, and I'm just going to read it. Under the decision taken by the government of Morocco due to COVID-19, all of Royal Air Maroc international flights to or from abroad have been suspended until further notice. We offer you the possibility of rescheduling freely your trip on our available flights to the same destination. So the one thing I don't know about that, and oh good, I'm glad you're still on here, Diane.
Yeah.
So the one thing I don't know about that is if that is for flights that are so far out, like 6 months out, or if it's more immediate flights. But it's definitely something to check into to see if you can just maybe put those flights on hold, get a credit for it, or maybe a refund. I don't know. And then
I think I'm on Delta. I mean, I most of the way. Maybe
yeah, Delta's been great, Diane.
Yeah,
they've been very flexible.
Right.
So, let's see. So, I'm going to go on to a couple of other questions here. Joe had asked if I'm going to be running any culinary tours in other U.S. cities. So some of you may know that I have been regularly, although I've taken a couple of years off, I regularly run tours to Seattle, Santa Fe, and New Orleans as culinary tours. And my plan, and I have the dates for the tours, I actually have the New Orleans trip on the website. It's not really hidden, but it's not super obvious. I do have plans for 2021 to do those 3 culinary tours. The trick, as I said earlier, is just getting information from my destinations, because the hotels are shut down at this point, and as well as some of the other businesses. Yeah, certainly one of the things that I'm thinking about for 2021 is to create more domestic tours. So that people can either drive to the destination and they don't have to worry about flying, or they just don't have to worry about going to another country. So I've thought about that. It's something that I am actively exploring, perhaps some outdoor types of trips if people want to do some light hiking, maybe in the Pacific Northwest. Is that Jan raising your hand? Yeah. Do you want to do a horsey trip? Should we?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Out back. Yeah. Packing.
Yeah, great. So yeah, I'm looking at options to do some trips that are more domestic. I don't know if anybody on here would be interested, but I'm actually working with a running coach who trains people from couch to 5K. And so we're looking at the possibility of putting together like a destination trip where you could run like a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, or a marathon at the destination. So so those are the kinds of things, and that would be in the U.S. Might be Hawaii, but it would be in the U.S. So
Alaska's in the U.S.
Is it open to me?
Yeah. So yeah. So there's other options that I'm looking at that might get us outdoors more. And just and domestic trips. So good question there, Joe.
Will that be open to your token Brit, Beth?
Of course. Could we get you to Hawaii?
Bloody right.
Okay.
What? Give me back the paddle.
Great. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick look here to see if I've missed any questions. I did have one person ask, and this was something that I wasn't fully up to speed on, so it was kind of a good lesson for me. The U.S. currently has suspended all visas for non-citizens for travel to the U.S. Thoughts on when they might start issuing visas again? And she was specifically asking about non-immigrant visas. And I know just in this past week, there's been more information coming out about that. I know like nurses and healthcare workers are trying to get into the US and they can't get in, which is a tragedy upon tragedy. But I actually didn't realize that visas were absolutely suspended for coming into the US. I thought it was just that the embassies had been shut down and that people couldn't get in-person interviews for it. But apparently they're just not issuing visas at this time.
We do that here.
Yeah. So it's, you know, I'm trying to censor myself here. The unfortunate thing is that we just don't know. Like we have somebody just very unstable who's overseeing a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to tell. Like this is a great excuse for not letting people into the country.
Oh, he's wanted this.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to know, you know, when things might change. So it might not be until what's inauguration day.
Yeah, if we even have an election at this point.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. We're even going to have an election.
Give it a
Oh,
rest.
please, no.
Give it a rest.
So I'm just checking to see if there's any other questions here. Anybody else? Did I miss anything that came through, or anybody else have a question they want to ask?
Beth, check your text.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. So I'm sorry. I thought I did answer that about Teresa's just feeding me something here about, is it too late to get travel insurance? Generally, you do have to get travel insurance right after you book. Like you have a short window, like maybe a week or 2 weeks time to get travel insurance after you've booked a tour or a trip or your flights. Oftentimes, your flights will give you the option to actually tack on travel insurance to that.
Right.
The only thing that I can suggest is to talk to a travel insurance provider and find out if it's too late. It probably is, given the circumstances. There's probably not a lot of wiggle room right now. But the fact that if it's just your flights that you're concerned about, I think that there's a really good chance that you can get credited. Probably not a refund, but you can get credited or be able to move your flights to a future date with no problem.
Beth, I usually get travel insurance. I guess I've gotten it about 5 times in the past 4 years. And it may be because of my personal situation, being an American who lives outside the US and being over 65 years old. Travel insurance for me is evacuation medical insurance. In other words, if the tour is canceled, I'm not covered. So you need to investigate it thoroughly. It may not be such a great thing that you are hoping it to be, but at the same time, my travel insurance runs about $65, $75 a trip. But cancellation or anything like that is not covered.
Right. What company do you use? Do you know offhand?
It's a Japanese company. There's a website that's kind of famous for travel insurance, and it ends up being back to Chinese.
Well, you know,
mine covers that. Mine covers cancellations.
Yeah, I haven't been able to do that.
Well, Alan, would you do me a favor and just follow up in an email and send that, send me the information and I'll pass that out to everybody?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Have you actually had to use that?
No.
Okay. That's the tricky thing, is that I bought travel insurance once for flights because it seemed like, I was like, oh, this isn't much of an add-on onto this trip. And it turns out that the flights got canceled or changed to a point where I couldn't I couldn't use them because I needed to arrive at the destination before my tour group, and the flights got changed, so I was going to be arriving after the tour group. And it turns out that insurance didn't even cover that. So, it seems like for me, it seemed like a great thing. Like, oh yeah, I'll tack on, 30 extra bucks, onto this. And that was the last time I ever did that. So I think it's, I think like the devil's in the details with a lot of that stuff. And it's kind of like, I use MedJet for my evacuation insurance, and they've been great because I've never had to use them.
Right.
When it comes down to it, I mean, I've heard great things about them anecdotally, but when it comes down to it, I don't have any personal experience, except they're really nice salespeople. They have a great system, online for buying the insurance, or me upping my renewal every year. It's been great, and I've heard good things about them, but I just don't have that personal experience. Thank goodness for it.
My travel insurance comes with my banking, HSBC, and I've had a couple of occasions where I've had to cancel. They've been brilliant. They covered everything.
I've read a lot, and what I understand is that most insurance, even I'm supposed to be in Costa Rica right now. I'm not. I'm in Missouri. But the travel insurance won't cover the pandemic, even if your flights are canceled, even if the country's not allowing. If you're sick, it will cover you. But if you have the virus, it will cover you. But it won't cover for a lot of other reasons.
For fear, like I just got an alert from Allianz, which is a company that we actually recommend. Teresa and I will send out links to for Allianz, but they just updated their terms of service, and they used the word pandemic in there, probably for the first time. And they said, we will not cover in the case of a pandemic or fear of travel. So if you just have a fear that you don't want to go somewhere,
or even in the case of, say, Morocco, even though it's not your personal fear, if the trip is canceled because you don't know, if the tour is canceled because of a lot of unknowns, I don't think they'll cancel you. And that's who I have as Alliance.
Yeah.
My travel insurance will pay if like our foreign office, if on the website the foreign office says you do not travel, then they will cover you. Even if it's a fear, because if you don't want to travel and they say you cannot, you cannot travel to that company, that country, that they will pay.
Jane, would you just adopt us and put us on your policy?
Yeah, that would be great.
Come and live with me.
I'm not worried about the travel insurance, and I am less concerned now that I know that Beth, that you won't be taking the last payment. You're going to make a decision about whether to move. But what I am concerned about as far as travel insurance is evacuation, which I guess is separate, but also medical.
Yeah.
And if it's
Yeah, so that like as Jane said, it's like if there's, or someone had said, I think maybe Kim, if there is a medical reason, you can use your insurance. But it's that fear, it's the unknowing, you changed your mind, they won't honor it for that reason. But if like for medical evacuation, or for I don't know about travel insurance specifically, but if you are ill, that's a whole different story. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that they'll cover for a physical, but they won't cover for a mental. It's the fear, anxiety. That's a whole other issue.
That's an interesting point. Yeah. Because it's harder to prove, right?
The other thing,
insurances for anything will have wriggle room, won't they? They'll find a clause. I heard ages ago that there are some big insurance companies that have a whole department that will go through your policy and find that little part that will stop them paying you.
Right.
Don't do it.
I believe it.
Yeah.
In regards to the travel insurance, the medical evacuation, you also are covered for medical expenses in country.
Yes.
Including pre-existing conditions.
Huh.
That's really important.
Yeah, that is.
Providing you've told them that you've got those conditions.
Yeah, but they're always finding out and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, but you know, you when you sign up for the insurance, you tell them everything.
When you submit a claim, for diabetic coma, and then they find out that you had diabetes to begin with,
but if you didn't tell them, then that's down to you.
No, when you submit the claim, though.
So
I was in Morocco and had a diabetic coma, and I had to go to the hospital. So I go, diabetic coma, do you know? And then they'll ask you, and they'll investigate you and find out that you've been treated in your home country.
Yeah, well, I have a condition which I had to notify about my travel insurance last year, and they were fine about it. They just made a note of it, but they've said, you know, if there's a problem, you're covered. So
a couple of people have added the insurance in the chat window. They've added the insurance that they use. Julie uses Travel Guard. She said she used it for an injury and they were great. And then Annie said that she uses Ripcord travel insurance. Loved World Nomads, but they won't cover past.
Yeah.
Should we tell them how old, Annie? They won't cover past a certain age.
What was that?
So Ripcord and then World Nomads if you're under a certain age.
Beth?
Yeah.
I went on insuremytrip.com.
Perfect. Yep, great.
And the company that carried the plan in all cases was Tokyo Marine, HCC Medical, Insurance Atlas International.
Okay, great to know.
I'll confirm that in an email to you that you can share with everyone else.
Okay. Super. Yeah, Insure My Trip is something that Teresa and I send out to people as a recommendation. We partner with those folks in Allianz just because there's good information. They're good folks to work with. Any other questions here? I don't have other questions that people had sent to me, and I realize that we're getting on to an hour and a half now, which has been fantastic. But any other questions that people might have? And I do plan to do this again. There were a number of people who couldn't make this time frame, people who actually have jobs.
Lucky them.
Although I will tell you, let me see if she's still on here. There is one person who canceled her other conference call to be on here. You know who you are there. Yeah.
Froze up.
She said, I'd rather be on a call with you ladies and gentlemen. So she jumped on with us, but I will schedule another call that'll be either evening or weekend and everyone else is welcome. I just want to give priority to those folks. But anyway, I think there was another question.
Oh, it's Barbara. I was just, of course, it's another unknown, but many of us are in that cohort that is the quote vulnerable population, and and that's another reality in assessing whether we, even if a tour was to go ahead, I think that's a personal choice. I was thinking, gosh, one of the things I most want to do is the Kasbah, but in Morocco, but that's something that might be a deal breaker. But at any rate,
I agree.
Yeah. Damn, I wish I could shave off a few years because I've got Morocco booked and we've got Gujarat booked, and the science says that this may well be 2020 and 2021. By the way, if any of you haven't seen the current issue of the New Yorker has a wonderful article on, it's about Dr. Fauci, but it goes into a lot of the science. Somebody was commenting earlier about, the world will just go on. Well, microbes may take over the world, but it's science that a layperson can understand. It's just a really interesting issue. One thing I would say is that Susan and I are in that position. We still own a small business, and it's a travel business of all things. So it's really challenging right now. And in terms of the loans, yes, Susan, she jumped on the loan applications immediately, but the money went to larger businesses than smaller business, even though we have, like 5 FTE employees. And the requirements of the loans for them to be a grant and not a loan are that you rehire your staff within, what is it, 2 weeks? I mean, 2 months.
Well, you have to be up to full payroll, full previous payroll by 2 months after you get the loan.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't pencil out for most small businesses.
Right.
So, just as we've established, a lot more questions than answers right now, but gee, it's good to see everybody and compare notes and kind of work through this together.
Yeah, we're all sitting in uncertainty together, at least, we like realizing, we're all in isolation, in one way, just like kind of stuck with our own thoughts about it and our own wandering about it. And it is good to chat with other people just to kind of find out. Not for me, it's great to hear what other questions are, but it's also just good to just to express some things and hear other opinions and speculation, because it's all speculation, isn't it? It's like not. I mean,
I was going to jump in just to the point you mentioned that most of us, from what I can see on here, we're all in that 60 and above. I'm 65 myself. I think we all have to make those decisions in terms of if and when we're going. Do I feel healthy enough? I know I'm a very healthy 65, so I'm going to go when I know I'm ready. But one of the things I think that made me so upset about this whole thing is that they were kept stressing, yes, it was people 65 and older. However, now they're saying more men are getting sick by it. And the fact that younger people who do get the virus are getting the more virulent side of it because of the vaping and everything else. So I wish they had gone out and just said, if you're a living, breathing human person, you could get the virus. No, really, because I think it made, I had the unfortunate experience here in Florida with a stupid spring breaker saying, hey, I'm 21, YOLO, I'm going out there and doing what I'm going to do because I'm not going to get it. So I think that if you have to make up your mind that we're all grown folks, once they say the travel's down, if you know your health concerns or you're healthy, you go for it. Because again, I go back to you have to yourself, you know what you can do.
Yeah.
Well, we've had a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old die here. A lady of 103 has recovered from it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Right. I don't really buy into that. The vulnerable, whatever. Exactly. Just, I'm sort of just post 60 as well, and I don't class myself as vulnerable, and
exactly.
yeah, I don't. Then they are now saying that there are a lot of people that that we've got a lot of medical staff and young nurses. 39-year-old with 3 kids died last week. We just
Yeah, I want to answer one other question here that came in about whether I'm taking deposits for any trips, specifically the New Orleans tour for next year. It's currently scheduled for May, I think it is. Yeah, May. I can take deposits right now only by check because, and I can take your name if you're interested in joining a tour. I'm just, until I know about my unemployment, I don't want to show any income coming into me or the business. And if I can take a check and just hold on to it, and then I would deposit it at a later time, once things either get back on track or once my unemployment runs out. But I just don't want to show any income that's coming in because I do not have business loans or anything. Unemployment is a way for me to not have to tap into savings or the business account to just kind of live on at this point. So to answer that question, if anybody does want to, and I know that one person actually has a number of friends who want to join that trip, yes, I can do that. I would only take a check, or I would just take a name, and then when it opens up, you would get priority for getting on the tour. So. Any other questions?
Let's do this again.
Let's do it again. I know. Like I said, I'll schedule another one. It'll probably be in a couple of weeks. I'll get, again, give priority to people who couldn't make this call this time of day, but I'll do something that's in the evening. It'll probably be 4 or 5 o'clock Pacific time. So it'll be 7 or 8 o'clock East Coast time. So that'll give people a chance to get home from work, have dinner, and then jump on the call. But I've had several people from the East Coast tell me that they'd be interested in an evening call. So that'll be the next plan. So, you know,
Well,
thank you all so much for being here. Like, just, I can't tell you, like, really, it means a lot to me. I like to have this community. I'm not a crier, so this is really unusual.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Well,
you know, it's like the fact that I have this community means so much to me. And just like for the 10 years that 10 to 12 years that I've been able to meet all of you, it's just like just really amazing. I feel really fortunate. So thanks for being in my life.
we feel fortunate also.
Yes.
I think
I remember your first trip to Bhutan in 2008.
Molly,
Wow.
you're muted. I know you're trying to talk.
Sorry. You didn't have us hold up our signs.
I know, hold up your signs. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Some
hold
held
up
them
our
up at the beginning.
Oh, I didn't do a sign.
Oh, wow.
You did yours backwards. Yeah, good.
I did mine backwards.
Oh,
Mine
that's my
backwards.
sign. My
Oh.
sign.
Mine's backwards.
Yes.
What happened?
Yeah, so
Doesn't
back
matter.
when I was
Picture. I like the picture.
when I was
Well,
making mine.
Thank you all so much. I'll follow up with some links and some additional information for everybody. And then because this was recorded, I don't think you would probably want to go back and re-listen to it. But if you know of any other the tour people who might want it, you can forward it to them. But I'll make sure that it goes out to everybody. And be well. Like, I know we've got healthcare workers on the call. So, like, thank you so much for everything that you're doing and putting yourself through. And pass that on to
Tiffany.
Pass that on to Nancy.
You're welcome.
Beth, also, please pass that on to Nancy. We missed her today.
Yeah, she's probably still in bed.
Sure.
As a healthcare worker, I cannot stress enough that please, I know it is awful to have to stay home and social distance, but hospitals are not in a good place. And please, for the sake of hospitals, that just continue to keep social distancing. And if you have to go out, then wear your mask. It is not protecting you, it is protecting other people. And so I beg that people continue to do this.
And shout out to Tiffany up in Alaska too, who's in healthcare.
Go girl. You be careful, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's you. Wait a minute.
Woo.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. I don't know how to shut up. Okay. If we have another question, Beth, can I text it to you or mail it to you or something?
Oh, look at your horsey. Yeah. Do you want to ask now?
Oh no, it's a personal.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, just
Okay.
just email me. That's totally fine.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Good to see everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
Beth.
Bye, Beth.
Bye.
Good to see you, Heather.
Good to see you too.
It's been a long time.